Hi there, I'm Katie Morton. I'm an intuitive and an energy healer.
And I'm Jennifer Palmer. I'm the owner of Nourishing Journey, an intuitive and energy healer too.
And today we would like to talk to you about relationships and growth.
Oh,
And when
yes.
I know, good times. When we talk about relationships, we don't just mean romantic. It could mean friendships, family, just all of the above. All relationships.
Yes. Let's begin.
Yeah.
All right. So, growth. Why do we want to grow? What would be the point?
Yeah, what is the point?
Because you could stay in relationship with somebody and never grow and never have an issue as far as like, is the relationship still a fit? But so why grow?
Yeah, well, sometimes you'll get this yearning, you'll feel a calling, like there's there's got to be some sort of a better life out there. You might not even know what exactly that looks like or what that is. And when we say better life, we're not talking about the standard American dream, which is a sad dream, which is like, I want a bigger house, I want a more expensive car. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, but external conditions do not necessarily lead to happiness. So when we say better life, we're talking probably more like point number 2, which is internal peace and ease.
Yeah. Well, not that the spiritual practice of growth is easy, because it often isn't, but also staying in that place of feeling that yearning to grow and not growing or not having your footing as you're doing it is also not easy. But at least if you're on that path to spiritual growth, you end up in a place with more peace and ease.
Eventually.
Yes.
Right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and along the way.
Sometimes you get a really great glimpse of what that peace and ease looks like. And then, bam, you're right back down in it trying to work through your stuff.
Right. So sometimes it's a little roller coastery, but think of it more like a spiral. So you might revisit issues as you go along the ascension path of improvement. And so just remember to look back and think, all right, well, I'm a little bit better about this issue than I used to be. Track your progress.
Yeah, and at some point we have to do this. And if you don't do it in this lifetime, you're going to have to do it in the next one. Which, brings us to the next subjects of our conversation. You want to heal those unhealthy patterns that you have, because you will enjoy life more, or you'll have better responses to things, and you'll feel more peaceful when chaos does come up. But also breaking the karmic cycle.
Yeah, so here's where the spirituality angle comes in, is that if you believe in reincarnation, we all live multiple lifetimes, and you're trying to improve your lifetimes until you can get to a point where you're breaking karmic cycles and you're ending karmic patterns. And if you do that well enough, in theory, you don't need to reincarnate anymore. You don't have to if you don't want. You can ascend to a point where you're just, you peace out of having to live in a body on a planet.
Yeah, well, we aren't there yet, clearly.
Obviously, here I am in the
I know,
barn.
right?
Although I guess the Buddha Vista vow could be that you do ascend and yet you come back, because as long as there is ignorance and suffering, you vow that you're going to reincarnate continually to help others. Anyway, healing unhealthy patterns just from an on the ground and less lofty, you know what that means. Just healing your stuff and stop reliving the same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah. And I think the hardest part with that is becoming aware of what the pattern is, right?
Yeah, anytime you continually get triggered and upset by things, that's like usually a pretty good place to start looking.
Yeah. Okay. So your vibrational state. Your vibrational state is literally your state of being. Where are you at? Are you feeling an emotion? Are you thinking positive or negative thoughts? Where is like your average state of being at? Are you generally more of a positive person, feeling pretty good most of the time? Or are you more of a pessimistic, negatively based kind of a person, glass half full or half empty, that whole thing, right?
Well, and we can we can fool ourselves about this a little bit in
that's
that
true.
you can be filled with this sort of, maybe like a lot of people are filled with like a righteous anger or judgment of others. A lot of people just walk around in a constant state of judgment and they're like, I'm fine. You're not fine.
I feel good and I'm positive.
Right? Yeah. So it's often a reflection too of, generally speaking, how do you feel about others? Do you feel like I'm okay, you're okay? Or do you think everybody else is just a pile of walking garbage and you're perfect? Nah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I never think that. Do you?
No, I don't, actually.
Thank God, because she probably would have thought it about me.
No, you're pretty cool.
Never
I'd give her a pass.
Yeah, I give you a pass too.
Others, I would give a hard pass, hard no. Anyway.
Which brings us to the next topic. You are who you hang with.
Oh my gosh, you're me and I'm you. It's not like that. It's your vibrational state. You tend to hang with people who are where you're at on the development path or the growth path or the vibrational path.
And if you start to have difficulties or struggles in that relationship, chances are you may be veering onto a different vibrational state than the people that you generally hang around. And we both have had experiences with that, where you seem to be good friends with somebody or maybe a group of people, or you seem to get along and understand each other really well and resonate with them, and then all of a sudden it seems like you don't. And to me, that's a sign from the universe saying, yeah, this is probably or maybe served its purpose.
Now it might be time to move on. So I know, like example, in my own life, I used to really enjoy, not that there's anything wrong with it, but like, wine-centered activities and gossiping and that kind of thing. And then at some point, it just became not who I am anymore. And so I had to kind of leave some friendships behind where we just started to be into different things. At the time, I wasn't looking at it like, oh, my vibrational state has changed. That's not usually how we make the assessment. It might just feel like, well, we don't really have that much in common anymore, and maybe we start to see issues very differently, or there might be some disagreements, or we just might not feel good when we hang with those people.
And it's not a judgment thing.
Yeah,
It's
just
really
different.
not. Yeah, it's just, the resonation has to be there for you to receive, both of you, everyone in that relationship, what it's meant to receive. And if it's not resonating anymore, then
it's time to move on.
It's time to move on, or have a conversation. It doesn't mean, oh, we no longer resonate, you're out. It's not that, but it's just, I don't know, something to explore and to not feel bad about if it does feel like it's time to end a relationship in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it changes as you grow and heal. So you might have a friend or a loved one and that you got along with really well, and then you start to change and grow, and you're healing things, and you are vibrating on a different level. So you are no longer the person you used to be, and you see things differently. But that person may not have had the same experiences healing and growing, and then they can't understand you anymore.
And you literally then don't resonate. So you know what that's like. When you don't resonate with somebody or a topic or whatever, you're not vibrating in the same place.
Yeah, like you're trying to force it or something.
Yeah.
So what affects your vibrational state? Well, we've already talked about healing and growing and like the more positive things, but negative things can also affect your state.
Yeah, trauma, wounds, anytime you get really reactive about something, you can lower your vibration. And then conversely, what can affect it positively is more clarity, more mindfulness, coming from a higher perspective. But
Yeah. All right. And so when you are dealing with the disharmony, that one of the main things we like to talk about is the distortion in our perspectives. So we've talked about the Law of One teachings before, but what they mention in Law of One is distortion. We all have a distortion. None of us are really seeing full-on truth. And so when you're dealing with disharmonious relations, you want to look at your own distortion and be aware that you're not quite seeing truth, the other person's not quite seeing truth. We're all just in this mess together trying to figure it out, and we're trying to help each other grow. And the higher and wiser space with all of that is to recognize that and try to figure out, how can you respond to an argument or a difference of opinion. And
if you're not taking that higher ground, it's normal to just think, well, I'm right, obviously, and you're wrong, and then to set about trying to change the other person's mind. And that's typically what people do. And so instead, it's don't necessarily just dig in and try to drive your point home. Instead, just pull up and out and try to see both sides. Try to assess what could be forming your distortion versus theirs, which could be the way you were brought up, the different experiences that you've had in life. And so our different experiences in life can inform our perspective or our distortion. And so it's important to realize that there's no right or wrong. Like it's really, because your truth has some truth to it, and their truth, because it's true for them, has some truth to it. So
I think the point with that is to be in that higher space and to be open to possibility and others' points of view without losing your own perspective at the same time, because your perspective is important.
Yeah, and it's okay to stand in your truth and to feel strongly about it, but also to allow people theirs.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have this issue with spirituality and, well, what is the right belief? Is it this religion? Is it that religion? Is it this idea or that idea? How are we really ascending and growing? And we tend to follow the law of one principles, generally speaking. I think it aligns with a lot of what we talk about and discover and explore in our own spirituality together. And we've become really good friends by doing this. But it doesn't mean it's the only answer, and it doesn't mean that we understand everything fully, and it doesn't mean that what so-and-so over there in this religion is experiencing and believing as the only way or the truth is necessarily inaccurate. There could be some distortion and misunderstanding that somehow harmoniously can bring it all together and in a really great, amazing truth. But I don't think any of us can really get it fully here in this 3D reality. So we just have to be okay with, well, it feels right to me, so now what?
So I'm just going to go with it, right?
Yeah.
And then you all have to live in the mystery a bit. And sometimes you just have to agree to disagree if your beliefs are that far apart.
Yeah. And hopefully as a wiser, higher response, you wouldn't be like, I agree to disagree. Because it's not so much that you're disagreeing, it would be more like
allowing all truths.
Yeah, I allow all truths. It's wonderful that you have that truth, and if you want to disagree with me, that's fine, but I'm in this space and this is where I come from. It's what feels right to me in this moment, and 5 years from now I might see things a bit differently, and that's okay too, because that's part of the growing and healing process, and being okay to grow and heal.
Speaking of growing and healing, let's talk about crabs in a bucket.
Right?
So this is not ours. I heard this from the lovely author Elizabeth Gilbert, who is friends with Pastor Rob Bell. And Rob Bell described the phenomenon when you're trying to grow and improve yourself. If you look at the friends and family around you, they often respond to your growth like crabs in the bucket. So that means you're trying to improve and grow and you're trying to climb out of the bucket. Their instinctual response is to grab onto you and pull you back down into the bucket. Because we all have, we form this sort of tribal hierarchy, or this idea of where we all fall in the pecking order, or how things are supposed to go, or the roles we're supposed to fill. And when we start climbing out of the bucket, everyone around you kind of panics and is like, oh, no, who do you think you are? And it might not be in such a conscious response from them, but it might look a little like, oh, you're trying to improve your health? well, have some chocolate cake because you've already lost enough weight. You know, it doesn't look like a crab in a bucket. It looks like a really nice offer of chocolate cake. But what it is underneath it, or maybe subconsciously, is an effort to sabotage your efforts to change. So,
because your change and your growth makes them uncomfortable, because then they even subconsciously think, well, that it brings like a discomfort and a fear to them of having to grow and change.
or
And-
the
or
idea
they
that
might
like
lose
they're
you.
not gonna grow and change,
Yeah.
and so don't make me feel awkward about my own
Mhm.
bad eating habits, or
Exactly.
if they're judging their eating habits as bad. But
Yeah.
yeah, the idea that they're gonna lose you or that you're gonna phase them out by improving yourself, I think is probably the main fear. Sometimes it's well intended on their part to kind of keep you.
And sometimes maybe not so much. Sometimes it's a little more ego-based, where they're like, you think you're better than me?
I'll show you.
I know, right? Well, and hopefully your response is, no, I'm just further along. Just kidding.
Right. Here's my tiara.
I know, right? But sometimes, you know, when you're dealing with these relationships and you're in disharmony, you know, of course you want to try to work things out. You want to try to figure out how to keep this person in your life if it is the best thing to do. But sometimes maybe it's not. And there is a time and a place and a season for everything. So being in tune with, you know, is the season done? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe you growing is going to encourage them to grow as well. But sometimes they have a choice, it's free will. They might choose not to, or they might just not accept you for who you've become. And if that's the case, then, you know, maybe it's time to let go.
Yeah, well, and if they're really just trying to hold you back and they're really just not being good for your growth process, then it might be time to shut off. Yeah.
Which is why we want to talk about next, honoring your path. So, you know, fearing your potential and losing those you love tend to be the biggest reasons why people stop their growth and stay stuck for a while. They're afraid to move beyond the people around them. And those who have done it will often say you go through a period of loneliness oftentimes when you're growing, because as your vibration shifts and changes from this group of people over here, and then you're shifting and changing, you no longer resonate with these people, but you're still like in motion to the next leap or the next step, wherever it is you're going to be, where your next tribe is going to be located. And as you're in transition, you know, you're not quite at this vibration, but you're no longer at this vibration, and you have to figure out how to be alone for a while and work through, you know, those growth processes before you land in this spot here, where you can then resonate with the next group of people.
Yeah, Martha Beck, who's she was Oprah's life coach. She talks about that ride to the top where you're in an elevator by yourself. You're growing and you're rising up, and you've sort of left one floor, but you haven't arrived. You're between floors in an elevator. Hopefully you can just keep growing and that the elevator doesn't get stuck.
Oh gosh, no.
Sorry, not trying to freak you out. You'll keep growing. It's all good. It's an unbreakable elevator.
But thank God. But sometimes, you know, that loneliness serves a really important purpose as well, because when you have other people in your life, it can be a little bit of a distraction if you're at a point where you need to really focus inwardly. The other people in your life might not necessarily be.
They might not be the best influence.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go through phases where you have to be alone because you need to figure out how to align with your most authentic self. Mm-hmm. And you can't find out who that is if you're influenced by other people. So sometimes you just need that alone time to figure it out.
And it's not always fun.
No, not always.
But sometimes it's the best way in that moment.
You wind up with better results in the long run.
And it also helps you, you know, when you're on your path, you need to align with your purpose. Mm-hmm. You can't just
flounder around out there.
I mean, and our purpose for being here is our ascension. That's the whole reason why we're even here living this life. And the vast majority of people that I have met don't even know that. Mm-hmm. Or at least haven't. I think more and more people are awakening to that idea. But, you know, it's almost like The between living a totally asleep life and living the true purpose in your authentic self with your ascension in mind. The in-between is self-development. So a lot of people, I think, have moved in that direction, but they aren't necessarily understanding that the whole point of it is you as a soul. You know, what are you doing here? How are you improving? What are you healing? What are, you know, where's your vibration? Where are you on your ascension path? That is so important. And that really is the purpose. And if you can align with that, all the other decisions in your life get simpler. It's not easy, but it's simple.
Yeah, is this going to align me with my purpose and help me along my ascension path or not? And that's the construct around how you make your decisions,
Right.
which often means making tougher choices, but in the end it's aligning you with your purpose, so you're actually reaching that goal of ascending,
Yeah.
as opposed to just trying to please other people or fit in or hang on to relationships and kind of conforming your beliefs and your actions just to hang on to that old stuff that you're afraid to let go of.
And I think a lot of us, you said it right there, a lot of us are afraid to grow because we want to just keep people happy. You know, we just want to like keep it easy and as long as I make it through this year without anything coming up and everything is good, everything is calm, life is okay. But there's no accomplishment. You're not attaining anything that you're meant to attain. You're not accomplishing a purpose.
And it's
you're
a
just,
false sense of control.
It is. And you're just surviving. You're not doing what you came here to do. You didn't come here to be like, okay, everybody stand still, nobody move, and we'll make it to the next year.
Right.
You know? I mean, that's not what we're here for.
Right.
So buckle up, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, get in there, get your hands dirty. Because otherwise, I'm just imagining, I don't know this, I haven't been there, but when you die, if you try to live that safe, confined life where you don't rock my boat or anybody else's boat, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of regret there. And this idea that you did not live fully or into your purpose.
Yeah. I've had a past life regression where I remembered a previous life and where I pulled out of the body and the regret that I felt in that moment about how I wasted so much time here. And it was so real. I can tune right back into that feeling and that memory, and it's just, it drives me to be like, I don't want to end this life feeling like I wasted it. I don't want to waste a minute. I want to do what I came here to do. You know?
I totally know. Yeah, I had a past life regression also where I spent a life in a Zen monastery and refused to learn how to meditate. And just was like, oh God, the monks.
Well, you know.
And so I learned in this life, like, just have gratitude for those opportunities for growth and do them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gratitude for the disharmony too.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have those moments in your life where it does not feel good and you're really facing some struggles or some adversities, or you're having a relationship issue with somebody, maybe you're outgrowing them or they're outgrowing you, be in gratitude for that disharmony, because it's that disharmony that lights your fire. If you allow it to, it can actually make you just move forward in such an amazing, tremendous way. And so far, we often say that
it catapults your ascension
process. And the greater the difficulty or the disharmony, the greater the chance or the opportunity for the catapult, the further you can go. And, it's important. So even in the difficult times, finding a reason to just be grateful, knowing that at some point you're going to be on the other side of this difficulty. And if you just stay open to the opportunity for the growth that's about to occur, and not put up any resistance, you're going to really move forward in your path. And it is about honoring your path, your journey in this whole process.
And I'm going to add one thing about adding resistance. It's a really natural reaction to just be like, this sucks, this is terrible. You do two things. You make the lesson like really less pleasant than it needs to be, but also you prolong how long it's going to take you to get the lesson. So it's important to always kind of try to drop that resistance as much as you can and get curious about what you're supposed to learn, because then once you can figure out that process, every time you get upset or triggered, to just get curious, what am I supposed to learn, and spend less and less time in that state of upset, the faster you can kind of plow through your lessons a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and finding a growth partner.
Truth.
Yeah.
This is my growth partner.
I know. We've had an amazing 2 years together.
We have, yeah. Just, plowing through our BS together.
Right. And it's been great. I mean, we definitely help each other a lot. And luckily, we seem to be triggered at different times so that the other one can usually help, the person through it. Yes, thankfully.
What a partner can do for you is when you're in that state of upset and you're too triggered to really sort out the details, a growth partner can help you to take that higher perspective, because they don't necessarily have the exact same triggers or experiences that you do, so they're not just going to be like, ooh, honey, that sucks, good luck.
Yeah.
They're going to give you different ways you can look at it and say, well, have you explored this angle? Or maybe it's more like this. And they can help you sort of open your eyes to what's the truth of the lesson here. And one thing that we've both, learned to do less of is when your growth partner says, well, what if you look at it this way? Of saying, screw you, man. I looked at all the angles and it's just terrible. Everything's terrible.
Sometimes it just sucks.
We've said that.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, well.
And sometimes we trigger each other in that way because it's like, I just want to be miserable for a freaking minute. Let me have a minute.
Just allow me my misery.
And then we realize, well, that's wrong.
Stop arguing for your limitations.
Yes. That really doesn't annoy me.
I know.
But it makes, as soon as she says it, I'm like, yeah, I know. And it pulls you out of that space.
Of arguing for your bad mood.
Yeah.
Because we'll argue ourselves right back in. But this is why it's so terrible, and this is why I should be pitied.
And then we laugh at each other, or we're like, yeah, or with each other. Because we both feel the same way, and we've been there together at different times. And, so... Yeah, but it's good.
So find a growth partner. Yeah. It's definitely helpful. And you might have to try on different growth partners. We definitely got lucky.
And it's got to be someone you feel safe with, where you can explore, the darkness that we all have inside, the shadow side of ourselves that we definitely are here to work on.
Somebody you can trust and who's not going to shame you and tell you you're terrible.
Yeah. And who can understand where you're at without joining you in the weeds and in your pity party or wherever you're at. They can keep that high perspective and say, yeah, you're kind of in the weeds right now. This is a higher perspective about what you're going through. Why don't you come on back up?
Definitely.
And then you work through things so much more quickly.
Yeah. And just one thing to note, I'm just thinking about it, you have too. We've had different growth partners over the years, and so just know that sometimes this whole thing can apply to growth partners, that sometimes you just grow differently from your growth partner and you have to find a new one, and that's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. So just try to find somebody who's working on improving and in the same ways you are.
Yeah.
And don't stress about it.
Yeah. And if it's time to move on, then have that high, wise conversation and be okay.
Yeah, and things don't have to be messy, but they usually are.
Yeah, but
it's just the way it is. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll see you soon. Please like, share, subscribe, depending on what platform you're on watching this. And we'll see you hopefully next week. You'll come watch another podcast.
All right. See you soon.
Bye.